What makes a good football commentary? What makes it an enjoyable, engaging and informative experience for a viewer or listener? This is not an exhaustive list, but it does include some of the most important elements that we should consider while commentating. Welcome to Sheepskins for Goalposts.
And he scored!
It's all very well producing a great piece of action commentary that's full of excitement and drama, but what does it mean in the grand scheme of things? One of the most important aspects of a football commentary is context. This is something we need to consider from the minute we start our introduction to the moment we wrap up our commentary. Not everyone is going to know the significance of a match or the score at any given moment within that game. Granted, the context of a cup final might be an obvious one to work out, but if we're covering a league game where getting promoted, making the playoffs or being relegated is a potential outcome, then we need to make that clear at certain points, particularly when the score changes. This is where an audio commentator can really be creative and descriptive. It's all about adding colour to your commentary, painting a picture, as it's called in radio. We haven't been given this blank canvas to simply add black and white. It's an opportunity to make our commentary come alive with colour and expression. A broad vocabulary and an inquiring eye can be a big help in achieving this. And don't be blinkered by what's only happening around the ball. Stay alert to what's happening elsewhere on the field, in the technical areas, on the bench, in the crowd. The BBC's chief football commentator, John Murray, is a master in the art of radio football commentary, and he has one piece of equipment that not all commentators use: a small pair of binoculars. When time allows, John will use these to focus on something he's spotted or scan for something he might be able to describe in his commentary. He's always looking for colour to add to his commentary palette. This can be a balancing act, a tricky one, but it's important not to peak too soon when it comes to our voice. Clearly, we would start our commentary with a certain amount of excitement and vigour, but once we settle into it, we need to have room for what's known as light and shade, peaks and troughs. High-octane, full voice projection to describe a throw-in after 5 minutes is not a good starting point. Firstly, our voice is going to be shot by the end of the game. The viewer or listener is going to simply be exhausted just listening to us, or worse still. Imagine your voice on the scale of a graphic equalizer. If your starting point is up here, where you're close to the top of your controlled vocal range, and note the word controlled, look how little room you have for changing up during the course of your commentary. The quieter, slower moments versus the faster, more exciting ones. And if we start too high up the scale, when it comes to those really big moments, we'll lose control of our voice, and we might even self-combust, if there's a dramatic last-minute winner. Whereas, if we pitch it lower down the scale, and I'm not saying be dull or flat, our 5th minute throw-in is around here, then look how much room we've got to move within our range. We can bring it up and down, we can be conversational, as well as high energy at those dramatic moments. That's where the light and shade, the peaks and troughs, come in. There's a fine line between football parlance or terminology and football clichés. Parlance or terminology are words that are phrases specifically used in football where in isolation they can sound rather strange, but when they're used in the football realm, they have particular meaning to those people who follow the game. And of course, they vary from country to country. Football clichés, on the other hand, can be considered parlance, but the fact that they're clichés tells you how overused they are. It's always best to try to avoid the most common ones, especially those that are more suited to a comedy satire rather than an authentic football commentary. This is a simple rule, and one which I believe most, if not all, commentators follow. Aside from our pre-match or half-time introduction or post-match report, don't script anything. Okay, we might have a nice line in our head that complements the kickoff, the final whistle, or a goal, but the general rule is don't have anything scripted for the live match action. There's nothing worse than having a rigid sentence that you try to crowbar in only to mess it up or find you can't finish it. And believe me, I've learnt my lesson on more than one occasion. It's got to sound live and it's got to sound natural. In addition to the Sheepskins for Goalposts content here on YouTube, our Patreon page offers you the chance to join the SFG community and gain further tips and advice from our live stream Q&As, personal commentary critiques, and one-on-one tutorials. The link for our Patreon page is in the description below. Another thing I learned very quickly when I started to do TV commentary in addition to radio commentary was that we need to have eyes like an eagle-eyed action man, you know, the ones that go from left to right very quickly, because not only are we watching that game playing out in front of us, we're also having to keep an eye on the pictures our viewers are seeing on their TVs via our own monitor. It's no good describing something that we can see clearly, but the viewer can't, because the TV director is focusing on something completely different. Then they're stating the obvious. The viewer is already having their senses alerted to by the pictures. We don't need to explain exactly what they're already seeing, like we would during a radio commentary. The last thing anyone wants is to be bombarded by our voice telling them the exact movements of the ball to the point where it's annoying or there's just too much information to process. We have to be concise with our sentences. Always try to complement the pictures, not get in the way of them. When it comes to identifying players easily, the work starts before the match gets underway. During the warm-up, find what differentiates one player from their teammates. Look at the colour of their boots. Are they wearing short sleeves, long sleeves, wristbands? Are they sporting ponytails, top knots, long hair, short hair, bright hair, dark hair? Because when it comes to those big moments like a goal, we have a better chance of identifying the right scorer. But even then, the key is to give ourselves time when that happens. There are plenty of occasions where we just can't see who got the final touch to a goal. It happens to everyone, even the best in the business. But what they do is they buy themselves time. Don't feel pressured to have to name-check the goal scorer straight away. If we're unsure, it's best to wait for the dust to settle so that we're absolutely sure. Even if it takes 5 or 10 seconds, there are plenty of other things we can say in that intervening period, even if we need to say anything at all when it comes to a TV commentary. And bear in mind, very occasionally, we might have to wait for a replay to determine who got the final touch.
Who got the final touch?
And just a side note on this subject, goals and commentaries that go with them are always archived for TV and radio. They're clipped out and used in future montages, intros, features, and more commonly highlights packages. So not only do we have to make sure we get it right when it comes to the goal scorer, but also that it's concise enough to be clipped. Shorter, sharper sentences so the editors can have the ability to cut it out. There'll be occasions in TV, though, where we can revoice that goal clip, so it's not the end of the world. Can we be partisan during a football commentary? Having worked for network TV and radio, done world feed commentary, local radio, and been an employee of a club for 10 years, I've got a good idea of the answer to this question, though it can be debatable in some instances. Personally, I would never use the words we, us, or them, regardless of who I'm working for. That's my personal preference. Maybe it's my background, but I don't think it sounds very professional. If you work for Match of the Day, Sky Sports, BBC 5 Live or Talk Sport in the UK, which are TV and radio networks that carry commentary of all teams without any bias, it's just not something that you do. Even in local radio, it shouldn't happen. I've never come across a single local radio commentator who's referred to the teams they cover regularly in this way. They obviously want the club or the clubs they report on to do well, and they are invested in them, but they still need to remain neutral and professional. They draw the line at we, us, and them. The only area where the lines become a little blurred is when you have in-house club commentary or online broadcasts, podcasts, and live streams that cater to one specific club. There might even be an insistence that this is the way they want it done, or have no preference either way and are relaxed about it. Otherwise, in my view, it's not advisable.
And he scores!